Who's the most confusing regular customer you've ever dealt with? There's this woman who comes into my restaurant 3 times a week and tips me $300 on a $20 meal every single time. My coworkers think she's either loaded or insane, maybe both. She always requests my section, even if she has to wait an hour. And she asks these random personal questions like what I'm studying or if I get enough sleep. Sometimes she knows things before I tell her, like when I switched my major or got a new apartment. The weirdest part is how she watches me work. Not like a creepy stalker, but like she's trying to memorize my face before I disappear. For the first few months, I thought maybe she was just lonely or had some kind of social anxiety that made routines comforting. She'd ask me these random questions while I served her, stuff like what classes I was taking or if I still played basketball, which was strange because I'd never mentioned playing basketball. But I actually did quit the team junior year. When I asked how she knew, she got flustered and said I just looked athletic, then changed the subject to ask about my college plans. My coworker Marcus kept teasing me about it, saying, "I think she has a thing for you, Usted. She only requests your section when she comes here." The other servers agreed and made kissy faces whenever she walked in, but something about her attention felt different from a typical crush. Then my mom got diagnosed with breast cancer last spring, and suddenly I was juggling double shifts with hospital visits and insurance paperwork that made no sense. I didn't tell anyone at work because I didn't want pity, but somehow the woman knew something was wrong. She started asking fewer questions and leaving bigger tips, always in cash with little notes written on napkins that said things like, "Hang in there," or just a simple smiley face. One night, I was so exhausted that I completely forgot her extra lemon and brought her regular dressing instead of the balsamic she always ordered. And instead of complaining, she just pushed an envelope across the table and told me to open it later. Inside was $300 and a note that said, "For whatever you need most, right now." I tried to give it back the next time she came in, but she pretended not to know what I was talking about and started asking about the weather. One Thursday, she came in with an older couple who looked like they could be her parents, and they kept smiling at me while she ordered her usual salmon. After they left, Marcus practically tackled me in the kitchen saying, "Dude, your cougar just introduced you to her parents. Make a move soon, or I will." Everyone was convinced she was working up to asking me out, but all I could think about was how much longer Mom had left. The answer came faster than I expected. My mom made it to my 18th birthday, but barely. I spent 6 hours sitting next to her that day, holding her hand and talking about nothing important. Right before the end, she pulled an envelope from under her pillow and pressed it into my hands. She held my hand with what little strength she had left and made me promise not to open it until after. And we both knew what she meant by after, even though neither of us would say the word. The funeral was tiny, just me and some neighbors and the nurses who'd taken care of her. That night, I sat in our apartment, which felt too quiet and too empty, and finally opened the envelope she'd left. Her letter explained that she'd adopted me when I was 3 days old and that my birth mother was just 14 years old. She wrote about how long she'd waited for a baby and how the social worker had called it a perfect match because the young girl wanted a closed adoption and my mom wanted to be the only mother I ever knew. But the girl had written me a letter too, which the adoption agency had passed along, and my mom had kept it all these years in case I ever wanted to read it. The second letter was written in purple ink on lined paper, the handwriting careful and round like a teenager trying to make it perfect. She said she was sorry she couldn't keep me, but she wasn't ready to be a mother, and she hoped I would understand someday. She promised she would think about me every single day and that giving me up was the hardest thing she'd ever have to do. She signed it, "Love always, Marina Wells," with a little heart drawn next to her name. I must have read that name 50 times before it clicked. I stared at the name until it hit me. Marina Wells, the woman from the restaurant. I called in sick for the rest of the week because I couldn't process what this meant. When I finally went back to work, she was sitting at table 12 with her salmon special getting cold. She looked up when the bell above the door chimed and her face went completely pale when she saw me walking toward her section. Her hands were trembling as she set down her coffee cup, and when our eyes met, I saw she already knew that I'd figured it out. Through her tears, she whispered, "I've been waiting 2 years for this moment, and I'll understand if you need time or if you never want to see me again." But I was already sliding into the booth across from her, and when I reached for her hand, she held on like she'd never let go. Both of us crying in the middle of the dinner rush while my tables waited and nobody cared.